Hello and welcome to TrojanVision One-on-One. I'm your host, Stephanie East. This is where we go behind the scenes to get to know the people who make Troy University such a special place. And joining me today is a very familiar face here on TrojanVision, Lauren Cole, who is the Executive Director of the John W. Schmidt Center for Student Success here at Troy University, and who wears many hats. You know, we're excited to be able to talk to you for this show today because as we mentioned, you're here a lot promoting the things that are happening at Troy University, but now we want to get to know Lauren and know more about you. So Lauren, tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and what led you up to Troy University.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually from Troy. So when I went off to college, moved off to kind of my first, adult job, if you will, after college, I lived in Montgomery for about 8 years. And then when my husband and I were pregnant with our first child, we decided to move back to Troy, and I was going to seek a job, at Troy University, since I knew so much about it growing up, knew it was a wonderful culture, a great employer, good place to be. So decided to apply for a job here and accepted the position of Director of Career Services back in late 2011. So I was in that role about 13 and a half years, and within the last several months have moved into this executive director role over the center.
Well, and we want to learn more about the center in just a little bit, but tell us a little bit more about your background, such as where you went to school and what you majored in, and some of your jobs previously before you came to Troy.
Yeah, sure. So I graduated here at Charles Henderson High School, and I went to Auburn and pursued an undergraduate degree in nutrition and food science. So surprisingly, actually growing up, I always thought I was going to be an eye doctor, an optometrist. So I use this story a lot as I talk to students about pursuing their career path. So I got into cell biology, physics too, and was like, this is not for me. I am struggling. So I looked at some of the classes that I had already completed that I did well in and that I really enjoyed and that I wouldn't lose that credit for. And so I saw a lot of that peaked with nutrition and those food science classes. So I decided, that's for me. I really enjoy those classes. And as I was beginning to get into senior year, I was asking, the cohort around me, the students around me, like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And all of them just about said, I'm gonna work in a clinical practice. I'm gonna get a master's degree and be a dietitian. And that is most everybody's route. And I kind of started to think, well, is that really what I want to do? And it wasn't. So a little bit of a crisis, a career crisis. I talked to students about this. I began to kind of self-evaluate and to do some networking. So I reached out to some people online, especially through LinkedIn, and came across a daughter of a friend of a work acquaintance, and she was the spokesperson for the National Dairy Association. So she used her food degree, but went into marketing and communication. So I decided that's it. The light bulb went off, and that's what I began to pursue. So after graduation, I actually was able to attain a job at the Alabama Department of Agriculture and Industries in Montgomery. So I worked there through 2011 and had some really, really cool opportunities. So we started with local farmers and statewide farmers and any food products that are at least 50% agricultural origin from the state, we could promote those. So if you've heard of Golden Flake potato chips.
Of course.
Yes. Bud's Best Cookies, that's in Birmingham too. Several milk producers, all kind of food products are made in the state. So I actually got to go around and really promote these food products across the state. I'd get to do these cooking segments, and I don't know that I'm the best cook in the world, but a lot of these employers that we got to know, or these companies, they would provide recipes and kind of show you how to best cook their product. So I got to go to several news stations in Montgomery and do some live cooking segments, a few in Birmingham, a couple in Huntsville, Mobile. and it was really, really fun.
It really is interesting to me how many products are based in Alabama. I get surprised sometimes when I see online, it'll say, this is based out of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you see in the grocery store, Wickles Pickles, that's pretty popular. That was originally out of Dadeville, Alabama. Mook's Mills cheese straws, you'll see those. Those are up in the Muscle Shoals area. So lots of really cool Alaga syrup. That's a long time product out of Montgomery. So there's some really, really cool things to promote. So I got to do a lot of that.
And one thing you mentioned, okay, so you led career services here at Troy for a while. And one thing you do like to tell students is sometimes your path is not straight. Sometimes it curves a little bit.
Yes, exactly. So since I really didn't know what my path was going to be exactly, I just knew I really enjoyed those classes. I think that's key for students to look at the names of the classes listed under their major and think, am I going to be miserable or am I going to love this? And not necessarily general studies. Some of that that helps you find your way and find your niche, but it's those major classes if they sound exciting to you. So once I got into those, then I really realized I love this. Now what all can I do? So not just assuming that the common path is going to be the way. There might be other ways to apply that major for a career. So beginning to network and talk to people and do a lot of research online to see what all is out there. And then who knew I was going to get to do, food segments on news stations. And we actually got to attend trade shows, and some of those were domestic and then some were international. Even we got to go down to Cuba. We got to do a couple through an agricultural license to Cuba, Japan, India, Vietnam, London. We got to go to London, Canada. So there were just a lot of opportunities that I never knew would be available without really beginning to network.
That is so important. I tell my students that too. Sometimes it's not what you know, but it is who you know. And I try to tell my students the same thing. Never say never, because you never know what's going to happen. If they say, oh, I know I'm not going to do this, I say never say never.
Right.
So you came to Troy, and tell us about your first beginning years here at Troy, what you did.
Yeah, so when I first came to Troy, I was coordinator of career services. So I essentially did that same job for about 13 years, and I really, really enjoyed it. So even though we enhanced the program every year, we had new offerings, new employers, but the students, they were different every year, right? So it was like we got to meet a whole new crop of students that are going to be in the workforce. So we would spend a lot of time on resume reviews, interview skills, and then I spent a lot of my time on career fairs, so getting to know employers. And really, I try to talk to students about if they are applying for a job, if their experience is not the exact thing on the job description, you have to try to find that that experience that does bridge that gap. So even though I did not work in higher ed before I came to work here, in my interview, I really tried to talk about those transferable skills that I had learned. So getting to know those food companies in Alabama was very similar to getting to know employers. So reaching out, establishing relationships with ongoing partners. So it's really important that you may not have the exact experience. Most graduates don't, for sure. So what did they experience both in internships or part-time work or group projects that really leverages itself into a full-time job?
And what did you see when you were in career services about some of the hardest obstacles students faced when they went from being a college student to going out into the real world?
Yes, well, I think with the labor market, it is just up and down annually. So the trends that are beyond any of our control, right? Whether it's hiring is very short, there's a shortage, things that we just can't control. And so I tried to give them the advice that most of the time, especially when the market's down, there have got to be a certain number of no's that you build up before you hit that yes. So if we're discouraged after no number one or no number two, don't be. It's still a long road. So, and then if they were prepared, if they really came in to see us, they almost always land on their feet. It just takes a little bit of time and some patience.
And one thing that the Career Services does here at Troy that is so impressive is goes around to the different classes and helps educate as well. And tell us what it's like going into the classroom and seeing these eager faces and encouraging them for their next step.
It's fun. It really is. And I've tried to always encourage students that most of us are not born really adequate public speakers. We're not necessarily good at talking about our skill sets, and it kind of feels like we're bragging, that kind of thing. But interviewing and doing some public speaking is a learned skill set, so they just have to do that more and more and more. So I think that's one area they can improve in, and we talked through that a lot. So doing mock interviews with our office, we had a software system we encouraged them to use. So, and I think for me, I never thought I would be on live television, but after I had done that multiple times, it got easier and easier, and it wasn't a skill set I was taught necessarily even in school. I learned it from experience.
And one thing that you were in charge of was helping with these career fairs, as you mentioned. What did you hear from employers when it came to students at Troy University? I know our department had one recently, and one of the employers told us that we had the best students.
Right.
And so I'm hopeful that other employers have said the same thing throughout the years through these career fairs.
They have. A lot of it does come down, though, to what we'll call soft skills, right? Or just the ability to approach an employer with some confidence. They know it's okay that the student might be slightly nervous. That is totally fine. But to have a sense of confidence about them and to be able to communicate in words pretty well what they're good at, what their skill sets are, what their career goals would maybe be. So just being able to communicate. So I'm sure your communication students and journalism students have had that practice, that repetition of doing that. So of course the employers want the hard skill boxes checked for sure, but what puts a student really above average are being able to communicate and being able to problem solve and think on their feet. So when they approach an employer at a career fair, if they look pretty confident and can speak fairly well, they're already ahead of the game.
Very true.
Yes.
So now you've taken over a new role, the head of the Center for Student Success. Tell us a little bit about the center and what you do there.
Yeah. So our Career Center actually sat within the Center for Student Success the whole time I was in that role. So I was familiar kind of from the inside of that role, and thankfully already had good relationships and rapport established with many people in the building. But kind of from across the building, we start with a couple of first year type programs where our advisors, it's not all first year students, but they do advise all students under 30 hours that are not already in a major. So they might be undeclared, they might be developmental, but they're going to serve those students they're going to advise those students academically. We have our adaptive needs program, so any student that has any kind of disability, they can actually go and register with that program and receive those accommodations that really just help put them on the same level playing field. We have our TRIO program, so that's going to be students that are both in high school that are thinking about college. They get exposed to different college campuses. They get to come on campus during the summer, stay in the dorms, eat in the dining hall, go to some classes. So it's really just exposure to what university life is like. The next level is student support services, where they have these host of staff in our building that really advocate for those students who might be lower income or first generation students. And then McNair is students that are thinking about graduate school. They might want to get a master's or even a doctoral degree one day. So those staff are there to help them. We have a computer and placement testing lab where students can come in and just use the computers anytime. It's a fun atmosphere back there. They've got popcorn and coffee and print things out, but they also oversee the CLEP testing and the placement testing and a lot of those services back there. And then students who need tutoring, so that's a big deal. If students have ever looked into hiring a tutor, it's pretty expensive.
Sure.
You know, several, probably about $40 an hour. So they can come in and get free tutoring in our Learning Center. And our Career Center, of course, where we help students first and second year really make that major decision, but then they are going to move into internships and jobs. And our community engagement, civic engagement office, they are doing some really cool stuff out in the community. So we like to think about our students as citizens of Troy while they live here. So it goes beyond just the university for both experience on their resume, where they can get out and do an internship, but also giving back to the community. So a lot of great services there.
Yeah,
So,
and you're right, that is so important. You learn so much from that, just as much as you do sometimes when it comes to a job.
absolutely.
So it truly is a place to make students successful.
Right, yes.
What do you see the future of the Center for Student Success being? How do you want it to grow?
Yeah, well, I think if we can really all cross-train within the building and see how our services can overlap for the students. So we did a neat session recently with a combination of career services and our McNair program. So a student came to a workshop and they're both thinking about graduate school from a career perspective, but they're also introduced to McNair in case they qualify for that program. So trying to do a lot of cross-training across the building where we can serve students for more than one service when we have them there.
And so speaking of going into higher education and even more education, that's something you're doing as well, getting your PhD in global leadership. Tell us a little bit about what that's been like and what you've learned through the program.
Well, I finished my master's degree, my MBA in 2011. So going back to school was a really big decision, especially for a doctoral level program. So when Troy came out with their global leadership program, I was immediately drawn to it. I'd been thinking about that and looking at ones that would be some commuting, that type of thing. And so Troy's being online was perfect for me. So I've really enjoyed it. That type of degree for me that would be kind of more, it's not for me, it's not going to be a discipline specific degree. I could teach some classes in leadership, but primarily for me, that's a behind the scenes, more administrative type degree that helps me in my work. So I've really enjoyed it. Now I'm in my dissertation writing phase. That's a whole different level of challenge. Yes. It's the classes have been fantastic, but it is interesting. They warn you the transition from structured classes to you're not on your own completely, but you really have to drive your own timelines and figure the dissertation out. So that it is a challenge.
It is. Yes, I have been there. It took me a long time, but you will get through it.
Well, thank you.
Have you decided what your topic will be?
I'm looking at pretty similar to what I did in career services. So corporate engagement in higher education. So we do that very shotgun approach in a lot of ways. So looking at some universities who do that a little more centrally, where we're not trying to access employers from a variety of different touch points on campus, and figuring out how we can even better streamline that and really try to maximize our corporate engagement relationships.
Well, another thing that you do here on campus that is really interesting is the head of the Chancellor Fellows program, and you are also a Chancellor's Fellow. So tell us a little bit about being in the program, what it is, and what you see as the future of the Chancellor's Fellows as well.
Sure. So I was a Chancellor's Fellow in 2016, 2017. It's really a developing leadership, emerging leader type program for the university. So many will remember Dr. John Klein. He was the leader of the Chancellor's Fellows program when I went through it. And then what we tried to do this year, we have 5 fellows. They're selected by the senior vice chancellors and the chancellor, of course. And they are really nominated by their deans as emerging leaders who may want to go into administration one day. So these fellows have spent a day together each month where we're looking, it's really a peek behind the curtain, behind the scenes of higher ed. So we focused on different areas of the university where we've heard from leaders about both how they operate their operations, their staff, but also their personal leadership approach. So we've been able to learn, like say from Dr. Palmer, some leadership lessons and how his area of the university works. So I hope that's given them a really good behind the scenes look. And then each year the fellows have to adopt a project. This year we did the Helen Keller lecture. It's actually the 27th annual lecture that was begun by Dr. and Mrs. Hawkins. So a really special opportunity for the fellows and myself. And we had that yesterday and it was a success, and we are really excited with the way it went.
Well, tell us a little bit about when you were in the program and what it meant to you to be a part of such a prestigious group group.
Absolutely. It was an honor just to be nominated. My dean at the time had let me know he had nominated me. And what it really did for me, other than, of course, the exposure to a variety of different areas of the university I didn't know much about, but you get really close with your other colleagues that are in the program. So you really kind of stay close from there on out. And it's a bit like, I don't know if you're part of a group, or you go to camp when you were young with a certain, people around you. So you really grow close to these others that you can call on in the future if you need assistance with a variety of things. So I really got a lot from that.
Well, and it must be exciting too to now lead the program. Did you ever think that you would advance and be
I did not. I did not. And I learned so much from it. And I also thought of a few things that I wanted to add to it. So, and it was just far enough back that I feel like I could make some changes, but not so long ago that I couldn't remember. So, yeah, it's an honor. It's really an honor.
Well, talk a little bit about the Troy family and what it's like being here. I think every time I'm out, I see you and you're out with your family and you're a part of the Troy community, both with the university and in the community. What is it like to be in this kind of atmosphere?
Sure. Well, I've really just loved working here. We live here, so that's been a great, balance for us being in the community, being involved in, my kids do all the things, right? And then being in a church here and campus or community organizations. It's funny because since I grew up here and then I was gone for probably 10, 12 years, I still had some contacts for sure, but I lost touch a lot. But when I wanted to work here, I knew I wanted to work here. And so I got up and I sent all my emails, tried to network, do all the things. I got up one morning, I put my suit on, I printed out all my resumes, and I came to campus. I met with Mr. Buddy Starling. I called on people that I had known from years ago and just tried to kind of see, is it definitely somewhere I want to work? And it was, and just to ask some questions and begin doing some networking. So it's just been really fun to feel like I've not come from the outside. I mean, I'm from here, but I kind of had to reintegrate myself in, and now I feel like I know most everybody, and it's fun. It's kind of like we tell the students, the smaller classes where the professors know your name. I definitely don't know every faculty member, but I gotten to know a lot of them and most of the staff. So that's really nice to work somewhere like that.
I absolutely agree, because when I was a Troy student, I have professors who still check on me. I won't say how many years later, but many years later, we'll still check in. And I feel like I'll do that for my students as well. But, you mentioned networking, and we've talked about how important that is. And I see a lot of students these days who are scared to talk to people because we spend so much time texting and emailing. What do you say to the students to say, put yourself out there?
You kind of have to. It might be a little awkward at first. You just have to push yourself out there. But also, most people are nice. Most people are open, most people are willing. So even if it's like a cold call or a cold outreach online, like a LinkedIn, if you can make that Troy connection, and particularly if it's a Troy alum, they want to help. So I would anticipate most people being willing. If they don't respond, it's probably because they're really busy. And so a follow-up is okay. Most of the time they want and are willing to help. So don't be too scared to do that. And it's kind of like interviewing. It's kind of like networking. You just have to grin and bear it the first few times until you get a little more used to it, and then it's okay.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. And one thing that Troy does such a good job with the Center for Student Success and Career Services is really getting the students prepared. And one thing that I have been so impressed with here at Troy is the Career Closet, and also teaming up with JCPenney for their suit special. But tell us a little bit about that, because sometimes it is hard when you are younger to afford to go shopping and whatnot. So tell us what Troy does for our students when it comes in that regard.
Yeah, probably back in 2017, 2018, we began to establish our Career Closet. So Dr. Edwards has kindly let us have a space up in the third floor of John Lewis Hall. And we began to collect attire, professional attire, from faculty and staff, have community members who no longer needed those items, ask them to dry clean them, and we give those away to students. So it's been amazing. It really has, to see students that they either just haven't begun their wardrobe yet, which is, I was in the same boat, or they just don't have the extra financial means. We understand it gets expensive, you know, during college. So that's been really, really helpful. I actually had a young lady that did a fashion show for us with an employer in town, and she had this amazing red suit, and it was kind of the Troy red, and I was like, wow, where'd you get that suit? Because I wanted to get one. She said the career closet, and I was like, oh, I don't think they have another one my size.
But it really is such a great program. I tell my students all the time that I wish that they had been here when I was a student.
Right, yes.
So just tell us, to wrap things up, what you hope to accomplish here at Troy over the next few years, and what you see the future of Troy as far as the university and our students.
Yeah, well, I have really enjoyed the fact that you get to know a group of the students, right? You get to know them pretty well. They might be your student workers, they might be your students in the classroom, but they're going to go off and they're going to leave, right? They're going to get jobs, and so I'm still in contact with many of those over the years, and so my network has just continued to grow, and it's so fun watching their success over time. I think of one that's working for Delta Airlines now, in the back office and marketing, and people that have just really grown and thrived. And so following them, and of course my heart is kind of behind that career success, but I hope to continue just to get to do that. Every year there's a new group of students coming in that we have the opportunity to pour into, and then pour into us, and I hope always to still be on the front lines to what degree I can, but the operations really matter, that we are serving students well, that our procedures, our operations, our services are run well, really matter. So I hope we can continue to do that in the Center for Student Success for our students.
I have no doubt that you will, but you're so right. That is something when I started teaching here that I didn't realize how excited I would be when a student came to me and said, I got a job, I got the internship.
Yes.
You know, I think I'm just as excited as their parents are.
We have a little bell. It was supposed to be there for like if the administrative secretary wasn't available, and you'd ring the bell, and then as times changed, we don't have a secretary there anymore. We still have the bell, and so we ring it real loud when students come in and tell us they got a job or an internship.
So I have to do that down in my office.
Yeah.
Well, Lauren Cole, thank you so much for being here with us today. I really appreciated getting to know you more, and for you joining us here today on Trojan Vision One-on-One.
Sure,
Thank you. And we'll see you back here next time.